As the Circus show trial in New York continues of Donald Trump, and the world watches Alvin Bragg and his ally in the judge siding with the prosecution over the defense in ruling after ruling, a curious thing keeps happening. Donald Trump's polling numbers are going up by the day. Claire Lopez, I was watching last night trial highlights, if you can call them highlights, out of the bizarre show trial in New York. It reminds me of Russia in the 30s and 40s, where the head of the secret police, Beria, told Stalin, "You pick the defendant, I'll find a crime," more or less translated from the Russian. And it seems as though that's exactly what's going on. The behavior of the judge in the case is so outlandish. Even Democrats on networks that would normally not be sympathetic to Donald Trump are calling the trial bizarre, and the lack of charges, the lack of actual law breaking, with the exception of Michael Cohen stealing tens of thousands of dollars from his boss and client. That is a crime, which he confessed to on the stand. Trial is now over except for jury instructions, which will determine what the court will maneuver the jury into deciding. But my question to you, since neither one of us has been in the trial, is how will this affect polling and then the elections? What I keep seeing is the more evidence that comes out of the courtroom, the bigger the numbers for Donald Trump are growing. They've got correspondents on the street in New York interviewing just passerbyers, New Yorkers and tourists, asking what do they think about the trial. And almost to a person, they're saying that the trial is literally political in nature and has nothing to do with crimes that may or may not have been committed by Donald Trump.
Yeah, I'm saying the same thing that you are, Barry, in terms of the polling, the surveys, about how the American people see this trial and some of the others as well. I mean, the good news is that they're all falling apart. The bad news is, of course, that the whole purpose of this one in New York in particular, but others as well, the purpose is to keep President Donald Trump off the campaign trail. But I'll tell you what, he's been making use of every break that he gets in lunchtime or before court time begins in the morning or after when it's finished, to go out into New York City and meet and talk to the people, the bodega the other week, and the construction workers early one morning. And now we're looking forward to a rally in, wait for it, the Bronx.
Right.
This should be a show to watch.
That's an interesting commentary. He went to New Jersey, I think it was last week. There were 100,000 people there in a Democrat state that a Republican for president hasn't carried in a very, very long time. And he does that in between sitting at the defense table in the courtroom. And every time the judge wants time off, out goes Trump out to the streets or gets on his plane and flies somewhere. And Will Johnson said this the other day. Trump shows up and there's 50, 60, 70,000 people there. Joe Biden shows up and there's 12 people in folding chairs and he can't read the teleprompter. The more Biden goes out and talks, the more people who would normally vote Democrat right down the ticket from the top to the bottom, from president to the local school board, are mortified that he can't even read the teleprompter, and the White House has to correct what he said an hour ago because he's garbled it up so bad he literally can no longer read.
Yeah, I have to say that a lot of Americans might traditionally have voted Democrat throughout their voting career. But the American people are honestly, by and large, they're fair. And when they see what is going on in this courtroom and the others, and see how not only blatantly unfair everything is, but what a circus is going on in that courtroom in Manhattan. And then, watching Donald Trump be what he is, which is a man of the people. That rally in Wildwood, New Jersey, you mentioned there, 100,000 people, or maybe it was more. And every time he goes out onto the streets of Manhattan, you don't hear boos. You see people gathering and chanting for him. I think that speaks well, not just of Donald Trump, of course, but of the American people.
That's an interesting comment, and I hope you're right that Americans are basically fair as a people, and I think they understand in the aggregate. And I'm not talking about Trumpsters, and I'm not talking about MAGA types. I'm just talking about the average person. The more they hear about these trials, whether it's Fannie Willis in Georgia or the U.S. attorney who's had his case thrown on the shelf in Florida, or Alvin Bragg in New York, I think they get that this is all political shenanigan.
Yeah.
And intended to keep Donald Trump off the campaign trail. And in the words of The View, hopefully put him in prison. Most people, and I mean this, I think you're right, are fair. And they understand these aren't crimes. If anyone has committed these types of crimes, it's Hillary Clinton, it's Joe Biden, it's Hunter Biden, and the Hunter Biden, foreign relations extortion racket with numerous countries. And yet none of those people are on trial. Well, maybe Hunter eventually for gun charges. But for the most part, it's just Donald Trump, and people get it, that it's all about keeping him off the campaign trail. That's why the polling just gets stronger.
Yeah, I mean, I think they vastly overplayed their hand, and the shenanigans, the circus atmosphere, in particular in that courtroom in Manhattan, every day, just piling on and piling on. The Americans see what's going on, and they're not dumb. They're pretty sharp. They're pretty, observant of what's going on, and that's why we're seeing, I think, the polling shifting, as I said before, steadily, progressively in favor towards Donald Trump.